my channel. Today we'll be making 3 cards. I'm going to show 2 on camera. They're very encouraging cards. Here I used StazOn ink to stamp this image from Unity Stamp Company onto some tonic brushed silver cardstock. It has a slick surface, so not just any ink will work, and I made sure to clean off my stamp with my StazOn cleaner immediately after using it, and I made sure I didn't have any residue on the block or my self-healing mat there. I did all my paper cutting off screen and just had everything ready to go, and these are 2 of the sentiments I'll be using today. Both very encouraging, both from Unity. I did heat emboss these images. I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp them out and made sure I stamped them a couple of times to get really nice crisp images. These probably would have stamped perfectly the first time, but I didn't put even pressure on. So I used the clear embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp. I like how that looks. Now this card idea started because I think women often, probably men too, but women often look in the mirror and they cannot see how beautiful they are. And I wanted this card to kind of represent that. I wanted this young woman to be looking in the mirror with this beautifully encouraging sentiment, and I feel like anyone who receives this would be blessed. So the card layout is supposed to sort of resemble a wall. Upper pattern, lower pattern, sentiment. It's probably supposed to look like maybe an art wall, with one of them encouraging signs. So I chose these patterns and colors, and they were rather muted and soft. I just thought that they would look really nice with the silver. So here I am layering everything together before I take care of the main image, and I was letting my StazOn ink dry. So this Spellbinders die, I purchased it during the Spellbinders moving sale, and I thought it was like a frame, and I figured that I could really make this idea work. But when I got it, I realized that it was not a frame, it was actually a locket, so I had to do a little bit of die altering to make it work for me. See here, when you get it and you put those 2 pieces together, you actually get a locket that opens up. So I had to snip that off, and I did that for each one of these, which wasn't a big deal. But I wanted to show that the dies don't necessarily have to be used for exactly what they're intended for. You can sometimes be creative with your dies. So here I was just poking all the last pieces out of this last one here, and they did come out nice. But there's a lot of little pieces, and it's a really intricate kind of delicate die, so I didn't want to like bend it or crinkle it or anything, so I used that pokey tool to poke out all the pieces. I did make sure I went around all the edges with my art glitter glue here. I wanted to make sure it was sealed together really well, because later on I did intend to put glossy accents on the mirror, and I wanted to make sure it didn't leak out. So I did put something heavy on them, and this one here is already stacked and dried. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to the mirror panel with the woman's face, and I'm sorry my lights made that glare kind of harsh, but you can see it is actually a mirror. It's the brushed silver cardstock, so it's not as shiny as the mirror cardstock. So these frames here are actually wood veneer, and they're self-stick, but I wanted them to go better with the color scheme that I chose, so I used a white picket fence distress ink to take the ink pad directly to the wood veneer and give it kind of that whitewashed look. I did really like that this stuff was self-adhesive. I think this came in My Favorite Things card kit like 2-3 years ago. It's been in my stash a long time, and I cut into it kind of recently. So here I'm just adhering these mirrors onto the wall, and I made sure that they were stuck down well, and I put some blocks on them to hold them down while they dried. And then here I am putting everything on their card bases. For these 2 I used ATG because they were dry. they didn't have anything wet on them yet. This one here I did off screen, and I had just added those Nuvo drops. I had made this the night before and let the glossy accents dry overnight so that I could show what that would look like. Here I am finishing up the last one with the glossy accents, filling that in, and I did adhere those frames well enough together that it didn't leak out anywhere, and I was just tapping to make sure that it was level. And I chose this copper Nuvo drop here because I thought it went well with the color scheme. It definitely tied in the color of the wooden frame and pulled out those copper tones in the papers. I did tap them on, well, the mat, and then here on this one I did tap it on the top of the Nuvo drop bottle. I wanted to make sure that those drops were leveled out and didn't have any weird tips to them. So here's some still photos of each of the cards. I'd love to hear which one is your favorite. And I really appreciate you stopping by. I'd love it if you'd thumbs up and like and subscribe. And here's an additional video if you'd like to keep watching.